I'm sorry, I could have added this a while ago, but I didn't do that. So in our day 5 we will be seeing formulas related to date and time functions. But before I continue my journey on the day 5, I would like to complete the journey that I have kept incomplete, or my time didn't allow me to do that, so I'm going to jump into that list. So yesterday we saw a little bit of text and text formulas, and then we started working on number formulas until trunk. Today we are going to continue that, and I want to start the program or the video session from even and then odd number conversions, and then I want to even deal with int here, and then if I want to add one more dimension to the dataset, I can also add ABS. Again, ABS is not going to really do anything very big unless otherwise I have a number formatting available in my list. So let's jump to my round functionality. This is where I'm going to add the next 3 formula. Again, when I go for the even functionality, the even function converts all my number into an even number. So again, let me just check out whether this is going to work for me and give an enter. That's going to convert all the numbers to the nearest even here. Again, if you see this even numbers are going upwards here. Again, when I go for the odd number, again that's going to do the same logic again, but this time around again the odd number is going to jump again one number above. But if I then go to the int functionality, the int function actually does what the round down and trunk is going to do for us. So you can use any one of these formula. Again, I really don't understand why we have a similar kind of a formula on a multiple dimension. There might be a different instance altogether. Let me just figure out what those instances are. Instead of using a round down and trunk, why I should use int. And even and odd is something which we can understand, that I want an odd number and an even number come into play, but again it is going only upwards, it is not going downwards. So can I do something on the downwards front also here? So again, I don't have too much of a syntax when I play around with these formulas. The formulas are straightforward here, so I don't have anything very big here. Again, I'm using a formula in my first cell, so my pound symbol or a hashtag symbol comes in all my formula automatically. So this is the formula that we are dealt right now, and then we have few more formula that comes into play on multiple rounding. So we already saw the rounding part once, so let's jump to the next dimension. So I'm going to copy this and paste it below, and this time around I'm going to use the mround ceiling, or I can use ceiling math. Again, both the formula doesn't make a big difference as such, and floor math will come into play. So when I work with these dimensions, it's typically like our round up, round down functionality. So again, mround will be the multiple rounding of normal rounding for the multiples, and then when I go for the ceiling, I am going to deal with upward rounding, and then when I go for the flow, that's going to go for the downward rounding here. Again, the formula syntax will be a little different because ceiling and math belongs to 2010 version. Again, when I work around with this data, I want to see how this data can be used effectively. So for that, I'm going to add a 5 above the formula here. So I will retain the second or the fag end of the formula differently. In our previous formulas, I never used the rounding, or I didn't complete the formula at the fag end of it. So but still the system worked for me. Again, I cannot do that in a mround function. If I do that, it will act as a round up and round down. It won't use the mround ceiling's capacity here. Again, there is another catch here, so let's see what happens when I use the spill effect in mround function. Again, I'll go back here, I'll just say equals mround, and then I'm going to just tab it down, and then I'm selecting the whole data set here. I'm going to give a comma and then select the column above and give an enter. That's going to give you a value here. So this is not going to work. I really don't know the real reason behind it, but I will find out and let you know why mround doesn't come into play. Normally spill effect won't come in an array formula. I don't know whether I can call the mround as array formula. Let me just check out and let you know about this. If you know about this, please do add a comment to this video in my YouTube channel, so which allows me to know something more about it. I will also learn something new here. So here I have to use the cell references to work around with it. I'm going to use an M round here, and then I'll select the number, then I'll give a comma, and without the multiples, if I don't give the answer is going to give you only a round function here. It won't give you the multiple rounding function for me. So I'm going to select the one above, and then I'm going to log this, and then I'll give control enter. That's going to populate the data, and then it is a normal rounding off, so that's going to give you a round up wherever it is required, a round down wherever it is required. And if you see, my rounding are all going in the multiples of 5. If I change the number above to maybe a 4, then I'll see a different answer. When I see 3, it's going to different answer. 2 again. Instead of using an odd and even functionality, probably I can use an M round function also if I wanted to. But again, I'm looking for multiples of 5 information here. Again, I'm going to use this right now in a ceiling. Again, as I told you earlier, ceiling is a function. You can see that it is given with a small warning symbol here, because this is the old school formula. That's okay. I'm going to give ceiling here. Again, I'm going to select the number completely, then I'm going to give a comma, select the significance above, and give an enter. But ceiling works fine. Ceiling still gives you the answer on the upward front. Ceiling terms top, so it's going to give you the single thing. Again, I'm going to use the ceiling math here. Again, it is going to become a different dimension altogether. I have more information coming up here. I never gone into the intricacy of what ceiling math can be used effectively, but I am using ceiling math, and the result is going to be one and the same whether I use ceiling or ceiling math. The same allows for me to work in the floor option also. So if you want to float down a number, you can do that by adding a specific numbers here. So that's going to populate the number, but it is going to go downwards. Again, floor math will also do the same for us. So again, what formula you are using? So you have more than one formula to work around. Again, we are not going to use all of them. We will use one of them in our routines. So by that way, you can use it. So when I use a normal 1 number or 2 number upwards, or downwards, or normal routing, I can use a round, and then M round, ceiling, and floor will allow me to round the formula in multiples of data set for me. Again, the next logic that I will talk about right now is on adding simple logic. So let me just add one more dimension here. So I want to convert this number into a Roman letter. So I'm going to just say 25. Again, when I go for Roman letter, I am curtailed to do something, because I cannot have a Roman number beyond a list. So for a Roman number, the starting number can be 1. I don't know whether we have any negative Roman number symbol comes into play. The ending number will be 3999. We cannot create Roman number beyond 3999 here. So if I want to find out what is the Roman letter for this, so I'm going to just say equals to Roman, select the number and give an enter. That's going to give you the Roman letter. Again, we have one more formula. I've never used this formula earlier, which is called Arabic. So Arabic will allow me to convert a Roman number into a text. Again, you can see that Arabic is giving you a Roman number into a text. Normally, I'm not using the Arabic symbol here. Normally converts a Roman letter into Arabic. That's what the normal Arabic function does for you. So if you go down to this, when you do Arabic, you can see that convert a Roman number to Arabic here. Again, my current symbol shows the Arabic as 25. I don't know whether number 25 is represented in this particular pattern in Arabic. I never used it before, so I will go through more about it and see where we can use this very effectively. And then when we are working with a mod functionality, again, mod function converts a data of a number with a divider here. So let me just pick up this number, and then I'm going to give a divider here. Let's see what up. So normally when I work with a number here, when I give a mod, if I have a number that properly multiplies here, then that's going to give you an answer here. So when it doesn't properly multiply, it gives you the reminder for you here. This is what mod I have used earlier, but again, mod can be used a lot when we are working with a time ratio where we are playing around with people who work on a different shifts, people works in a shift where it consists of 2 different days will be combined as 1 day for them, or an 8-hour session, or 8-hour work hours for them, or 10 hours work hours for them in a day. So those are the place where I will use mod for us. So I've just used what is a mod, and then I've even used Roman and Arabic here. Again, I never use the product and power generally. So for example, if I want the power of this, so I'm going to just say power and then select this and comma, I want the power this by 2, and that's going to give you the data set for you as 4. Probably a square root function will also do this for you. Again, I'm using a power here to do it, so I'm going to say square root of this, so that's going to give you a data set here. And then if I say square root, that's reduce the data set for me. Now you can see the square root of this and what is the power of this. So if you want to increment the data, then I use power. If I want to decrement the data, then I'll use a square root here. Square root of 4 will be 2, and then square root of 16 will be 4. And then you can see that there is a power formula comes in place here, which is making the data set differently here. And then if I use the other dimension, I'm using a square root here, so the data sets vary accordingly. This is what a power will do. When I say product, again, I need 2 numbers to be worked around with it. So when I normally use a multiplication, that's where I use product here. So I'm going to just pick up the product as my list of this here. So again, so product will give you multiplication. So we have addition and multiplication available in our Excel calculations, but division and subtraction is not available. So you can create a user defined functionality to achieve that. So the next set of formulas is going to be the basic formulas of Excel, so where we can create sum, count, average, max, min, counter, and sum product. So these are the formulas that we will be seeing in the near point. And then I do have a formula where I can see an aggregate and I can see a subtotal function. So there is a lot of variances that we're about to deal with it. So let's see how to work on this. I'm going to create a simple calculation here. For this, I can normally use a simple point. We call this as calculated column in a normal data analytical world. So calculated column is nothing else. I'm creating a separate column for my calculation. Instead of calculating all of them in one shot, you can create an aggregate calculation too. So that is where I'm going to use a different formula in Excel. So let's see what is a calculated column. So normally when I populate this we would have seen in our cell references formula. So when I have each and every dimension of the data set comes in place, this is where my calculated column will come into place. So instead of using a calculated column, I only need the total value, the sum function here. Then I can use the keyboard shortcut here. Alt equals will allow me to add the sum function automatically to my list here. Again, you can use a sum here. This is one way of achieving my formula. The other way that I can achieve this is without creating a calculated column here. So what I will do is, instead of using a sum, I will use sum product here. When I use sum product, again, sum product is an array formula. So when I just want to create this, I don't want a calculated column at all. I'm going to select this, I'm going to give a comma, and then I'm going to select this. That's going to give you the total value automatically. This is the difference between a calculated column and a calculated measure. So when I go for a aggregate column, so I'm going to just only get the answer here without this column of data. That's what a sum product will do. And you can also create an average for the sale here. I'm going to just say equals average, and then I'm going to select the number above. And you can also find out the count here. So how many data set that I have here, I can just select this. But count works only in a number field. If I try to do the same count in the product field, I will not get the answer that I'm looking forward for. So here I will not be using count. Instead I'll be using a counter. If I select this, it's going to give you 0. And if I change this to counter, and then I'm going to select only until D8, and that's going to give you an answer here. Again, if you see the answer doesn't change much. because I've only selected 5 columns in the data set here. But counter will consider even the heading if I select the headers also. If you closely watch my count, I selected from G5 to G9, and then here I selected D4 to D8 alone. So that gave me the 5 point here. So again, I'm going to move this to downwards here. So the formula will be similar to the data set here, and I can also find out the maximum value out of the data set here, and then I can find out the minimum value also. So this is how we can use a simple math operation functionalities where we can play around with some product, and then count, average, max, min, and counter. We have 2 more formulas that comes into play, and this is gonna be really very handy for me. So now I jump back to my data set again. This time around I want to just make this as total here. So when I do deal with this data right now, I am dealing with some average, count, counter, max, and min. Again, these formulas are static in nature. So when I try to adjust this formula, or when I try to create this formula with some filtration, so I'm going to select this data. I want to filter the value only above 500 here. So I'm going to just say, come down to my home tab, and then I can just say sort and filter. I can add a filter to it, or I can just go to the data function and still add a filter here. Wherever I add a filter, the filter will be commonly activated here. I'm going to drop down this filter, and then I'm going to say number filter should be greater than 500, or I'll say greater than or equal to 500, so that even the 500 will be considered here. So when I do that, the filtration happens here, but if you see closely, I'm not able to see the answers below changing here, because I use a normal functionality here, which is called sum function, which is a static function in my data set here. If I want the same function, but when I change the data set, I want my answer to also change here, then I can do something a little better, and that's where my data set is going to give you information beautifully here. So now for this, I'm going to use 2 different formulas, either subtotal or aggregate function. So I'm using aggregate function at a very straightforward level. Again, you can use aggregate function phenomenally, because in a subtotal function you will get literally around 11 different formulas. You can just see that the subtotal function will give you 11 different formulas here: average, count, R, max, min, product, standard deviation, sample and population, sum, variance, sample and population here. One formula will give you almost 11 different formulas here. You have to only remember that you are going to give the right number for the formula, so that if you give a wrong number, then the answer will be odd here. For sum, I want to give a number called 9, average will be 1, count will be 2, and max and min will be 4 and 5. So I'm going to just populate that in here. So I'm going to just say I want the summation of the data here, and then I want the average, I want the count, and I want the max and min here. So let me create a formula here. I'm going to just say equals subtotal, and then I'm going to select the cell on the right, because I would just want this to be navigating to other dimension. I'm going to give a comma, and then I'm going to select this range, and as I'm selecting this, I don't want this data to change here, because this formula is going to navigate below right now for the other dimension. I'm going to give an F4 once and close the bracket and give an enter, and I'm going to populate this to other dimensions here. Only this will not work for me. Let me just see what is the, I will even use the counter here, but again counter is not going to really work for me here, but still I will use counter here, because counter will give you an answer for you. And now I'm going to just populate this formula on my right and show what happens in the data set here. So the formula will show a different dimension altogether here. Now I would like to expand or filter this data accordingly. So if I filter the data again, so I'm going to go back here, I'll just say Ctrl Shift L. That's a keyboard shortcut for adding or removing a filter. You can also use the old school keyboard shortcut Alt D FF. or you can use Alt-AT, which will add or remove the filter here for you. Now I'm going to filter out the data. Wherever I have a value above 500, I'm going to filter that. The moment I do that, you can see my answer is changing when I work with subtotal function. You can see my average is changing. My max number will not change because the highest value is 1250, but the average is changing, and other dimensions also changes. So instead of this number, I'm going to just make this as greater than. Then I will have only 3 numbers coming up here. My answer will furthermore change in my subtotal functionality here. Again, I'm seeing that answers changes below because I have a lot of number which is below than the given number here. That's why it is not showcasing the 5 and the 250 that I would like to see in here. A subtotal function will be an array formula which allows you to get whatever you want. Again, the next formula that we were about to learn in our data set will be called aggregate function. So aggregate function has even more function than the subtotal functionality. So when I go for aggregate, I have another set of function. I have 19 different formulas comes in place here. So I don't have I'm not only going to have the 11 function that I have in subtotal, but I have more than that, like median, mode, single, large, small, percentile include, quartile include, percentile exclude, quartile exclude, and so on and so forth. The advantage of using an aggregate function will be a little different. For example, if I have the data, so now I'm going to just take this line item and then I'm going to hide this. Now I want to create an aggregate formula here, so I'm going to just say equals aggregate, and when I do that, again it's going to give you the same answer for my list. So let me add the aggregate function here so that I can see the data set. I'm going to select the 9 here. When I give a comma, then it will ask you a question. So what do you want to do? So it will ask you whether you want to ignore the nested subtotal and aggregate function, ignore hidden rows and nested subtotal, ignore error, nested subtotal and aggregate functions, ignore nothing, ignore hidden rows, ignore errors, hidden rows and errors. So I don't have an error here, so I have only hidden rows here, so I'm going to just say ignore hidden rows so that my formula's total will be different. I'm going to give a comma, then it'll ask you where is your array. So this is the array that I have here. So if you see, I have 5, 6, 8 and 9. I have 7th row is hidden. When I close the bracket, it is going to give you an answer only for the 4 line item that I chose here. It is leaving the 750 for me out of the equation. The moment I unhide this data, my answer should have an effect here. So when I unhide this data, and then you can see that automatically my answer is changing here. So wherever you want to hide a data, or wherever you have a number which is which has a small errors or something like that, then the aggregate function will really allow you to do things better. When I do this, I'm going to select this dimension and then let me just lock it so that I can populate this formula to other dimensions also. So the variant wise, it doesn't do anything very big. Again, when I filter the data, my aggregate function will literally work like a sum function here, which won't act as a subtotal function because aggregate function works only on the commands that we add here. So when I filter this out with some out of the numbers here, then it is going to showcase the number. You can see that the filtration is still taking into consideration. It is taking the data because the hidden rows are not considered. When I filter out, it will be a part of my hidden rows. As I mentioned, any hidden rows are there, consider that for my list. But if I say a different scenario altogether, let me just go back to the unfiltering data. Let me change the formula a little differently. So I'm going to just say, instead of 5, I'm going to say ignore nothing, and then I'm going to populate that formula here. Now if I filter out the data, my system will work like a sum function. Again, you can see that the variances are different. Now the formula doesn't change much because I didn't use the ignore functionalities to the right front here. So when you're working with the data sets here, so use the data set accordingly, and this is what an aggregate function has given to me. Again, we'll see a lot more about aggregate function because I have a huge data to play around and talk about the data sets here. So let's go for the aggregate function little detailedly, and in subtotal function also little detailedly when we come back to sum ifs functionality. So that will allow you to make sure the data work better for you, and then you can also see the data sets work better in all point here. So this is what the numbering formula that we want to discuss about, and then we saw how these data are doing wonders for us. So let's see how we're going to use this data even better. So my formula list on day 4 is complete with this dimension. So let's jump back to the formulas on day 5. Again, I have a good half an hour. I think I can complete this in half an hour time, or else I will extend for another 15 more minutes to complete my day 5, so that we can just have a handful of information to work around for this week. When we come back on Monday, we will talk more on ribbon functionalities, because I only touched formulas here. Probably at the end of our session, probably I would have touched somewhere around 75 formulas at least, or 74 formulas at least. But again, this is not our end of the data. I am only touching the basic level. I'm trying to showcase every formula that I have here. When I talked about yesterday's scenario, I said that I don't use one formula which is called ISO ceiling. I've removed that formula in our list here, because when I try to find out the ISO ceiling here, I see that in my drop down list. Probably if I type the whole formula, it might come into play. Yes, it comes in that way. I never use this a lot, so it is a formula which is removed again from our system here. Let me just work on this, and then I'll come back to this data. Again, this is nothing else. It's going to bring the data set downwards here or upwards here. Let's see how this is going to work effectively. I will work on this probably when we come back on Monday. What are the formulas, or what are the data that we missed here? We will see those dimensions completely. So we will see the next set of formulas when I go back to this data. I'm going to close this data, and then now I will jump to our day 5 formula. Again, when we go for a day 5 formula, that's going to make our life a super duper one. Let's see what this data is going to do for us. So when we are working on this particular data set, our date and time functionality will be the one which we will think of it. So let's see how we're going to use the date and time formula effectively. And when I go for a date and time function, I have 23 formulas here, and I have 2 ribbon functions which I will be using it in our list. Wherever my data I don't need it dynamically changing in here, then I'll be using the ribbon functions. Wherever I would like to change the data dynamically, then I will be using a different function altogether. So let's see how we're going to use these dimensions effectively, and how these data are going to make our life better. Let's see how to do that. So again, here there are a few formulas which is not used a lot in the middle versions. When we use 2016, 13, 19, we never use them a lot, and as we are started using dynamic split array formulas, we are using our old formulas also now and then. I'll show you how we're going to use these dimensions very effectively, and how we're going to make these data work effectively for us. We'll see them all. Make sure the data sets work in a proper dimension. Let's see how we're going to use that. So I'll jump back to our new sheet here. I'll start with the first set of formulas here. The first formula, I will either use a formula or a ribbon function. So when I do that, again, please do remember that your system has the current date set correctly here. If the system doesn't have the current date sets here, then it might give you a very odd answer for you. That's why I'm just telling you that whenever you're using this data, see to that you are having the right date. So today we are on 10th, so I think that my system dates are working properly, so I'm happy with that. And if I want not just the date but I want also the time, then I'll use the next formula called now. So now will take you to not just the time but also the date with the time in it. The advantage of having this is active, so after a minute if I go for a sheet refresh or a refresh, again I'm not going to use a sheet refresh here, because if I do that my Commit Teacher Studio will pass my data here or my video here, so I don't want to do that. So I can achieve this if I don't want them dynamically changing here. So this is dynamic because as I'm using a formula, I can also use this as static if I wanted to, by just adding a keyboard shortcut here. The keyboard shortcut that I'm about to use right now will be a control semicolon. So when I do that, automatically my answer will come into play beautifully. So the keyboard shortcut is control semicolon. So when I press that, I get the list. If you can see that the left hand side data are changing here, so I'm going to say control semicolon. That's adding the list here. If you want the now function, again now function will not directly work for you here, so you have to work a little effectively here. So to do that, I'm going to use control semicolon first, and then I'll give control shift semicolon later. I'll give a space before I do that, so that it's going to give you the now date for me. Again, when I do this, again this is going to be static as I said earlier. I'll say control semicolon spacebar, control shift semicolon will give you the dates here. Again, when I populate this, now it gives you the latest date for me, but this date will change for me as I started moving my session. So my left hand side dynamic data cells will change, the right hand side will not change here. The right hand side is going to still remain same, however way the data sets are added. When I use control semicolon once and then I gave a space bar, I gave control semicolon later. Now I want to populate this for the other dimensions. So next set of formulas that I'm about to use right now will be on these. So I'm going to use the functions here. So let me just pick up until 9 and then I'll add them to the left here. Again, when I go down to this portion, you can see that the next formula that I'm going to use called day. Again, when I go for day, it is going to extract the date alone from me. So for example, on 10/1/2025, it is going to extract me answer called 10 here. I'm going to just say equals day, and then I'm going to just say use today here. I'm using two formulas simultaneously so that it will become dynamic for me. So now we can see that it extracts the day alone for me. Again, a date function will be a different function altogether, because a date function will inform or it will give you dates in between two different dates here. So for example, let me just add some line items below, and then I'm going to just say I have a start date here, and then I have an end date here. I want to find out the dates in between these two. So when I say 1/1/25 to 31/1/25, I want to find out what is the number of days that is there available in this list. I can do that with these here. When I do this, I'm going to just say equals days, and then the end date will be the first one. I'll give a comma, and the start date will be the next one. When I close the bracket, that's going to give you the number of days in between these two dates. It's not going to give you exact valuation here, but it's going to give you an answer a little differently here. So this is how the dates will come into play. In the olden version, we won't use formula, we'll just say equals this minus this will give you the same answer. But again, I'm using the days functionality where it allows me to get the relevant answer that I'm looking forward for. Now the next logic will be the month. Again, when I go for month, again I will use the dynamic formulas here. So let me just pick up the data sets here. I'm gonna pick up this. So I'll just say equals month, and then I will say today. Double close the bracket and give an enter. That's going to give you the answer for you automatically. And then I'm going to pick up the data in this way, so that this way it will going to give you the information for me. Again, I can also get the other dimensions. So let me just pick up this and then use this fill series to populate the numbers for me automatically. And if I give an year here, that's going to give you the year from you automatically here. So I'm going to just say today, close the bracket twice and give an enter. That's going to give you the today for you automatically here. In the same way, we can find out the text date here. So when I go for the dates here, again my date will work a little differently here. So let's see how we're going to use this. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to just say equals text functioning. Again, I did use this yesterday when we talked about the fill series option. So the same scenario, I'm going to use it. Again, this time around, I'm not going to type something here. I'm going to just say today, and then I'm going to close the bracket and double quotes it, and then I'm going to give 4 days here. That's going to give you the day of today. So I'm on Friday today, so that's going to give you the day. The same way, I'm going to use the month here. That's going to give you the month for me. Again, I'm not going to use a month function. I'm using the text function to extract the month for me. I'll just give everything in double quotes here. But when I do that in a year, it is not going to give you an answer in a text year. It is going to give you an answer in a text formatted year. So when I go for the text functionality here, and then I'm going to give today, and then I'll close the bracket and I'll give a comma, and then I'll say I'm going to just give year. If you give 3 Ys itself, it's enough. So I'm making sure that the data are uniform here. So I'm going to give 4 Ys, and if you see, I'm seeing the 2025 comes on the left hand side of my data, not on the right hand side here. So I use 3 different formulas. Again, one, I have extracted the data based on what I want to get out of it. The other one that I did right now is on the data front, where I want to use the list a little differently here. So this is the way we are about to use with our date and time formula. Again, these formulas are pretty easy to work around, so it's not going to really take too much of time. But again, on the use case front, this will be very useful for us to work with data dimension in our list here. So the next set of formulas that we will see is on the time front here. Again, for the time, I have to literally fill in the data accordingly here. So by that way, my time will also work effectively. So let me just pick up the next 3 or 4 formulas for our usage, because the other formulas I want to do it separately. The next formula that I'm going to use right now is on time. Again, when I use a time functionality, I will be filling the data literally here. So when I go for time, I have to mention the hour, minute, and second here. Again, I can achieve the time a little differently here. What I will use is I will go for now, and then when I go for the now, it gives you the data set for me, and then I put the now inside the text, and then I want the data to be in hour, a minute, seconds. So when I do that, it's going to give you the data set beautifully, and this is the formula that I've used here. Again, I'm using a lot of formulas to achieve this. The same logic I can use, because instead of using a time function, I'm using the text now function to get the result for me. In time, I have to mention the hour, minute, and second here to get my data set work accordingly. So for example, you can use something like this also if I wanted to. So now it's giving you a very odd answer for me, because it's not allowing me to do it. So I can only fill a serial number in a minute, in a time zone. I may not be able to add them all in this list here. So in the same way, I can just say now, and then I can just say hours in front of it. it's going to give you the number of hours here. Again, the formatting will be a little odd here because I'm creating now in this dimension. So instead of this, I can create the data set. I'll say hour in this data. So that's going to extract the data. Again, the data is in custom format for me. Let me convert this into a time so that it's going to give you the time for you automatically. But instead of using this, I can use hour here. And then I can just use the hour function. Again, when I do that, it is giving you a very odd answer for me. Okay, it's giving you the hour, but I want the hour to come as 9 here. So let me just pick up the text function, and then I'm going to use the now, and then I want the answer to come in hours here. So that's going to extract my hour for me. Again, instead of using a hour, again when I go for hour, again it's going to be a list here. So let me populate this, and I'm going to convert this into minutes, and then I'm going to convert this into seconds. So everything will come automatically here. So now I'm going to just F5 this data. So this is going to change the information for me. Again, when I use the time now, I'm using minutes, I'm using month here. So it's taking will become a month for me. So now I want to just pick up the M alone. Again, when I say H, it's giving you the H. Again, a minute, I'm not able to bring them in a list here. So let me just try to bring the minutes here. And then I'm going to call this as this. Again, it's not giving me the minute that I'm looking for. So you can extract the data as in hour, minute, and second accordingly. Again, still it is giving you not the seconds here. So let me just change this to seconds here. It's going to give you the seconds, and when I press an F9, it's going to add my list here. So again, when I press an F9 here, this is adding my information. So now I can get a refresh rate accordingly here. So my refresh gives you information for you. My hour point worked, my seconds point worked, but the minutes is something which I have an issue with the quotations here. So by that way, the minute will also work for you. Again, we try to work on these dimensions here. I will add 2 more dimension, or maybe 3 more dimension in a data set. The rest of them I'll move to the next point. The next set of formulas that we are about to deal with is called weekday. For example, I'm going to pick up one of the dates here. I'm going to use that in here, or I'm going to use it in everywhere here. So now I'm going to first bring a weekday functionality. A weekday function converts a particular date into a serial number here, and then when I select the number here, when I close the bracket and give an enter, that's going to give you the date as 6, because a weekday function always starts the week on a specific day, and normally if I don't specify anything here, the system understands the first day of the week is Sunday. If you want the first day of the week to be considered as a Monday, then I have to specify that with a specific return type number called 2. By that way, this is going to say that I'm on the 5th day of the week because I'm on Friday today. It's going to give you the 5th day of the week here. Now if I pick the next logic, that is called week number, so which week I am in the year here, so I'm going to go for the week number. It's going to give you a week number called 2, and this will be also same when I use an ISO week number. ISO week number will vary only when my date falls on a Sunday or a Monday. For example, if I just pick up a 12/1/2025, my week number will become 3 here, because a week number, when I start using in the data set here, the system will consider the week number start on a Sunday by default, but an ISO week number always starts on a Monday. So when I try to add the same date, it is not going to showcase the 3rd week, it is going to showcase the 2nd week for us. So if you want to see this 3rd week, I'll give one more day later. That's going to convert this as the 3rd week here. So please do it perfectly. So when you're working with an ISO week number, it takes any week where the weekday starts on a Monday. If it is a Sunday, a week number will say that is the next week, but an ISO week number will still consider that as a previous week for us. So where you want to use, how you want to use the numbers here, you can plan accordingly. Again, for the minute, I'll come back again because I think that I have some issues with my system here, which not allowing me to get the minutes for me. So let me just try this one more time in our data set. Instead of using this, I'll just say a minute. Again, it is not giving me the minutes with a specific dimension, so let me just work on this and then I'll give you an idea about it. Then I started with weekday and week number and ISO week number. This is our date and time formula for us. So next set of formulas will be a very handy formula. This is the basic formulas that we will always use in Excel. Again, we are not using all of them, we are using some of them for sure automatically. The next set of formula is going to be really a beautiful formula sets here for us. So this is what we are about to learn right now. This is an intermediate level of formulas, I can say so. Let me just add this. So what a workday function will give us. When I go for a workday function, if I'm normally running a project, if I want to find out the last day or the end day of a project, I can achieve that with ease with a workday function. Again, the workday function, workday.intl function both does the same logic, but there will be a subtle variant here. So let me just show you what those variants are. For example, I'm starting a project probably today, and then I'm saying I'm going to end the project. I want to find out the end date of the project. I know the project's numbers here, so number of days I'm going to work on this project is going to be 50. Then I want to find out what is the end date. Again, when I go for a workday function works as per the US calendar. That means Saturday, Sundays are by default considered as holiday. I don't want to specify this in a formula. The system will read the formula automatically. If the day falls on Saturday, it will not consider that as a day of a working day. And when I work with the holidays here, so if I have a list of holidays or a public holiday that I'm playing around with, then I can just add them all here. I'm not very familiar with the US calendar on January because I know that there are few holidays that comes into play in January. Let me just see on the list here. So let me just go back to US calendar here. When I pick up this, so I'm going to pick up all US leave, not state variant leaves here, because each and every state will be different here. So let me just pick, oh my goodness, it's giving you an odd answer for me. Okay, so when I go here, 9th is a holiday, again national day, and then 20th is also a holiday for us across Martin Luther King's Junior Day. Then it's okay, right? The only one day that we have as a holiday here is called 20th of January, because definitely this will be a part of our list. So let's go back here, and then I'm going to fill this data. So I'm going to go for work day function. The moment I go for workday function, the workday function comes with 3 different syntax. Again, the third option is optional. Again, if I have it, I'll use it. The start date is going to be this, the number of days is going to be this, and my end date is going to be this. When I give an OK, that's going to give you an answer in a number format. To make the data work better, I'm going to come back to my date, and then I'm going to go to Home tab, click the format painter, and add the date format to my end date. Then it says that my project will end on 3rd of February. Again, when I go for the next logic, so this is where my formula will become better, because if I'm having a company which is not just in India, so not just in US, it's also in some other country, probably it's also in India, then what happens here? When I come back to India, again I have a lot of holidays hitting in this particular week. We are having a lot of holidays here. Again, if I'm an MNC company, I won't give that much of a leave, but if I'm different, then these are the holidays that I have here, plus I have one more holiday in India here. So literally I have public holidays of 5 days when I come back to this again, if this falls on a different dimension, then it's easier. In India, we consider not Saturdays and Sundays as holidays unless otherwise we are working in an MNC company. Most of our Indians enjoy our holiday only on a Sunday. So how do I deal with this data? So when I come back to the Workday international function, the weekends are not specified as Workday function does for you. So we have to specify our weekends. So when I go down to this point, again my syntax will be a little different here when I go and use Workday international. So Workday international gives you one more dimension in here called weekends. I'm not going to use the function argument here because I don't know what should be given in weekends, so I want to see that what's coming in the drop down. I'm going to just go for Workday international. My start date is this, comma, my number of days is this, comma. When I do that, I get a drop down here for the weekends. It says Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Sunday, Monday, Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or only one day. Indians, we take only Sundays all day. In some situation, we do work on a Sunday too. So I'm going to move the cursor to Sunday only, which is called 11. Then I'm going to give a comma and select all these dimensions and close the bracket and give an enter. And you can see that it gives you a different answer again as usual. So I'm going to go and add a format painter to it. If you closely watch, we are giving the same data set a much better point here, because when I go down to the Indian contingent here, the Indian contingents are finishing the same work, even though they have a lot of public holidays in between. Again, if I remove the public holidays out of the equation, probably they will give only one holiday here, not all of them. So let me just copy and paste special value it. Let me just delete the holidays which I think we won't get. So now we can see that if I put two public holidays in our list and Sundays as our weekends, then we finish the job 5 days earlier. Again, Donald Trump doesn't really gonna love this because I'm taking the job from an American here. That's what they say. So but we don't do that. Americans want us, so we are using it to them. Donald Trump, when he sees it, so if he brings the weekend style like we have in India, then probably he may save a lot of jobs for the Americans, I believe so. I'm sorry, Mr. Donald Trump, I'm not really pushing you off or pissing you off. I'm just telling you, if you want to enjoy your jobs in your country, then consider becoming universal here. So this is what a Workday and Workday international function will do. When I go for NETWORKDAYS allows you to find out the number of days in between. I will call this as number of working days to be more precise here. So I'll be getting the start date and I'll be getting an end date. Normally this is used a lot in a manufacturing unit where they have some conditions to fulfill when they work around. Again, the condition is going to be the same when I use the NETWORKDAY function, because it is going to work according to the US calendar year. When I use for NETWORKDAY international, then I pick the calendar accordingly. So now I want to find out the number of days or number of working days here. So again, I know the start and end date here. Again, when I calculate, you will definitely see that it is going to give you a positive answer on the other side. So let's see what it's going to give us as an answer here. The first part is I'm going to just say equals NETWORKDAY. It's going to ask you what is your start date. The start date is going to be this, comma, what is your end date. The end date is going to be this. And you have a holiday during the period. Yes, I do. Then it says I'm working 22 working days as per the US calendar, because US calendar, in US people work only 5 days a week. In India we work 6 days a week, so we will be getting more days here, even though I've given 2 holidays because I'm covering 5 weeks on January, so I'll have 4 Saturdays and Sundays at least, so I'll have 4 days added to my data sets here. I'm going to go back here, I'll say network days international, start date is this, comma, end date is this, comma, weekend is only Sunday only, and then I'm going to just say my holidays, all the public holidays are this. When I close the bracket and give an enter, we work 4 days more than what we do. And then even if I take a lot of holidays in between, if I even give the 3 holidays that I have removed from my previous dimension, still we will be working 1 day higher than the US counterpart here. We work more, but we don't earn more. US people work less, they earn more. Their minimum salary will be around $2,000 to $2,500 for base worker. Again, the cost of living is a little different here. Again, I'm not blaming that we are not paid a lot, but when you go down to this dimension, you can see we have a differences in our list, and then we work more and we do things better than the counterpart here, but still we are not entitled to get more data sets here. So the next formula that we will see is called EOMONTH, that is end of the month. So if you want to find out the end of the month of a specific year, I can do it. Most of the time we know the end of the months on many situations, but only when we work with February month on a leap year, that's where our data is going to work a little differently here. So now I want to find out the data here. So now I want to find out what is the last day of this particular month, and if you want to find out this a little differently, you can also do that. So when I give 0, it is going to find out the current month last date. If I give 1, it's going to give you the next month, and if I'm going to give -1, it's going to give you the previous month for me. So normally in a data set, if you want to find out different set of months in here, you can achieve that. Again, this answer is going to be again a number, so I just go to the format painter and then add the number format to all my outputs here, so that my data will not give you an odd data output for me. So let's come back here. I'm going to just pick up equals here and then EOMONTH, select the data completely. Let's see whether it works spill effect on it, and this spill effect is not working on the end of the month here, so I have no other choice other than to use my cell references here. So I lock it, and then when I populate this, you can see wherever we have a leap year, it's going to give you a leap year. Wherever we don't have a leap year, it is going to give you a non-leap year here. If you want this formula to work for all the columns simultaneously, then I hit an F4 and then go back to my first cell and then convert it into a column lock, and then I'll populate this by Control R. That's going to give you the answer differently here. So okay, and then I want to just keep the second point also out of the equation, so I'm going to convert it into a row lock here. So when I do that, it's going to pick up the data accordingly. So when I select this, you can see what is the second condition that I'm choosing here. You can see them all here. So the first column talks about my current month's last date. The second and third column talks about the next month and the previous month. Again, the other months are not going to change much. So if I say 4 months from here, then that's going to give you a different dimension. When I give 7 months here, that's going to give a different answer. When I give a -7 month, that's going to give a different answer for me altogether. You can go backwards until the date 1/1/1900. You can go forward until 31/12/1999, 9,999. If you go beyond than that, I will be in a spot of bother. Let me just see whether it is going to work for me beautifully in that way. Let me take this data to 1900. Let's see what happens. The moment I change the date to 1900, I get a num error when I go -7 months here, because my first date is 1/1/1900. I gave 1/2/1900. So when I go backward below 31/12/1899, I will get a num error in Excel. So that is how the data works for you. And if I change this to a different dimension, so let me just change this to a data set which is in 1998. Sorry, 9998. So it is giving you the answer here. So the moment I convert this into 12 months, that's going to give you a num error because I'm in the second month of 9,999. So I can add only 10 more months here, not 12 more months. So I don't have 10,000th year in my Excel data sets here. So you can see that it is not allowing you to get what you want here. So you have to be very careful. The start and end date cannot go beyond and above this. By that way we can see the end of the month works for you. The next formula is going to be end of the day. So now I want to find out today's date, and I want to find out what is the 6 month day after, 12 month after date, 24 month after date, 36 month after date, 60 months after that. To find out this, I'm going to keep one column of the data better. Let me just see whether the EDATE works in the spill effect for me. I'll say EDATE, select this, comma, this. Spill effect is not working in the EDATE function also. So I'm going to go for EDATE, select this column lock, comma, and leave this and then give an enter. That's going to populate the answer all over there and change the dates into, or the numbers into date format. Now I know on a specific month what will be the falling date here. End date will be the date exactly adds 6 months back to it. When I work with a function, I earlier made an ISO ceiling function until I typed the whole formula. I never saw it when I normally gave an equals, and then when I say ISO week or ISO week number came into play. ISO ceiling never came, but I gave the ceiling formula completely. I got the formula when I gave an open bracket. The same way the DATEDIF function will also work in that particular pattern. Again, these are the formulas, will not showcase the syntax what we are about to use, how it's going to come into play. I'm going to pick up the data, and this is a beautiful formula according to me. And I don't know why they removed this, because this works in SQL Server and any other Microsoft products. I really don't know why they removed it in Excel. The real reason behind is something which is a questionable point, so I'm going to just mark everything here. So I'm specifying each and every way in which we can put up a date. So I'm going to just say I want to know how many years has completed so far after our independence. So I want to see that. To do that, I'm going to just create 15/8/1947 and then today's date. So I'm going to just say equals DATEDIF until I type the whole formula and give an open bracket. It is not going to pop up. I'll select the first date, I'll freeze it, comma. I'll select the second date, I freeze it, comma. I'm going to select the Y above. You can mention in a double quotes also, but I don't want to space or I don't want to spend a lot of time on doing it. I'm going to select this. When I populate this to the right, I know the number of year, number of months, number of days, number of months from the start and end date, and number of days from the start and end date are all calculated easily here. So this is how we will calculate DATEDIF here. So I would like to finish all our formulas today, and then yes, hola, I did that for you. So I've completed all the formulas. Probably I would have done a little faster than normal as we are running a video here, so I'm not really much worried about it. So you have an option of seeing them again, so that way you will not really feel it is too fast. You can just pass it out and play it again and then see how this data works. I just showed you on an elementary level how or what are the formulas available in our system. We will see them where we will be using it very effectively when we come back to the real-time system analysis in our Excel learning. So we are reaching that really very soon. So we touched in the last 5 days, the total number of formulas is going to hit the roof for us. Let me just show you how many formulas that we have learned so far in our journey. So we literally learned around 75 formulas, I believe. So I just marked it out today with all the formulas that we have learned in the last 5 sessions. And then we also learned around 10 to 11 ribbon functions so far. Yes, the total formula that I taught so far is 74. That is awesome. Again, let me see whether I kept the ISO week number in this list. No, I removed it. Yes, I just showcase all the formulas for us. Yes. So we have almost completed our agenda of traditional formulas, but I'm sorry, I have given all the other formulas which we are not going to use regularly, and then I have completed so far around 11 different ribbon functionalities here. Again, subtotal I should have given it even a ribbon function, but again I am already taking a little longer than normal. I don't want to add way too much of information for us in our list, so I will end our session with this today. When we are coming back again, the next session will be on Monday. On Monday we will try to see something on the ribbon front. So I want to just touch something on the home tab, which we will use on a regular basis, because I just touched format painter. We'll talk about conditional formatting, and then we'll talk about sort and filter a bit, custom sorts rather, and then we will talk about find and replace, go to special, and how we can use the select objects and selection pane and so on and so forth. And then we'll jump back to our insert functionality, where we will talk about table, pivot table, charts, spark lines, slicer, timeline, how we're going to use other dimensions, and then we will learn more about it. So next week I'm interested more in building up datas for the ribbon functions until page layout. That's what my agenda is to finish, and then probably by then we will finish our basics by next week, and then subsequently whatever we are going to do, we will learn how to work from the intermediate level to advanced level of Excel. So I don't want to take too much of our time. Today we touched somewhere around 1 hour 7.5 minutes. Again, the fag end of the formulas were a little faster for me. I think if it is fast, please do mention in the comment. We will try to reduce the speed a bit. I don't know, I just want to finish these 2 topics by this week. That's the agenda I kept in my mind, so I want to finish that. Okay guys, catch you up in my next session on Monday with the ribbon functions that we are about to use in the home and insert tab possible. Cheers guys, thank you super users, have a great weekend ahead. Thank you so much.